Hello, good afternoon. It is Saturday, the 22nd of April, and I'm reading out of Joan Grant, When Moses Was Born, or So Moses Was Born. This plays in Egypt before Moses' birth. Joan Grant was a writer of her farm memories. They are her memories. This is her 7th book. She lived between 1907 and 1989. And I have enjoyed this one, particularly because I have not read it. I had read all the others, but this one I just bought a decade or so ago and didn't read it. So I'm reading it here with you. The story is told out of the view of Nebunefer, who is meant to have been the first heir when Seti died, but he yields the crook and flail to his younger brother, Ramoses II, and Nebunefer retires to the living water, which is a remote estate. But he is called back to the palace, and here he is having a conversation after many, many years. But Moses is not yet born. He meets the oldest daughter of Pharaoh and had a conversation with her, and we are now in the next chapter 18, Shadow of Ammon. Karadin refrained from asking my opinion of Meremta until he had seen us together on several occasions. Then, one evening, when Penpy had gone to bed, we were lingering over a particular fine wine grown in his vineyard at Heliopolis. He said abruptly, "Neb, you don't like the boy, so I must resign myself to the fact that you will not try to influence Ramoses to appoint him the royal heir." I was feeling pleasantly tired and in no mood for serious discussion, but I could not avoid a direct challenge. I said without enthusiasm, "I like him well enough. It's not fair to blame him for being arrogant. How could he be anything else? His mother is almost slavishly devoted to him. His father prefers him to all the other sons, and most of his brothers and sisters toady for his favor. He has the makings of a good soldier, and no doubt he will find an excuse to prove it as soon as he comes to the throne." "There is no need for a new war," said Kaladem defensively. "Meremta will not agree with you. Only yesterday I heard him boast that treaties were for old men who dared not lead chariots against the foreigners. He said it in the hearing of one of Karutusil's emissaries, which I considered somewhat undiplomatic." "You should have rebuked him severely, Neb." "I did so, to be told that though as Penpy's cousin I was tolerated at court, I was in no position to criticize the behavior of princes. When I laughed at him, he flew into a rage and threatened to report my insolence to Pharaoh. So you see, dear brother, I do not share your glowing view of our nephew." Karadin pulled the lobe of his ear, always a sign that he was perplexed. "He's never been uncivil to me, but I fear that Penpy shares your unfavorable view." There was a hint of disapproval in his voice which nettled me. "No doubt Meremta is fully aware that it is you who decide how much he can spend on gifts for those he deigns to honor with his approval. He won the contest of Arrow last month. Did you not know that the man who allotted the prize now has a new chariot with a pair of stallions descended from the victories of Thebes? He told me they were here for his eldest brother, a marriage gift. And you believed him? Perhaps I have underrated his subtlety, for the master of expediency is not often gullible." He refilled my goblet, and though some drops fell on the inlaid table, did not seem to notice it. Few things could more graphically have demonstrated his agitation. "This is almost distressing. I hardly know what to say. It seems I have been most remiss in not doing more to encourage the gods to send us a true son of Horus." He paused and looked more cheerful. "However, it's not too late. There could be a promise of more temples, perhaps some trading barges on the Nile, or the whole of the salt tax. It will require most careful consideration." I laughed derisively. "I fear that the gods, unlike the majority of those who claim to serve him, cannot be bribed." He was shocked by my levity. "Neb, I'm surprised to find you so cynical. I can assure you, from my personal experience, that the murrain on cattle in the Nome of the Black Bulls ceased immediately after Ramoses went there to sacrifice in person at their new temple. It occurred in a manner which cannot be explained except by divine intervention. No doubt the people decided that if Pharaoh prayed for them, it would not be beneath their dignity to perform the same service for the well-being of their animals. This flippancy is most distasteful. Why should we build temples and maintain a righteous priesthood if the gods listen to the common people? I must beg of you to keep such dangerous hearsays to yourself. I can assure you that I'm neither flippant nor cynical about the efficacy of prayer. Real prayer, however, is far more rare than gold in Egypt, and infinitely more pleasing to the gods. Karadan was startled. You think Ramosis should pray for a son? Surely it would be no less than courteous to ask for what he hopes to receive. He became suddenly ebullient. Splendid, Neb, splendid. The hypostyle hall of the temple at Karnak would be the place. At the Min festival, do you think? Or should one concentrate on pleasing Ptah? Horus, of course, must also be given special honors. Shall I summon a scribe so that you can calculate how much could be offered for a son of Horus? 100 times his birth rate in gold and 10 times his weight at 20 to assure he reaches maturity? 1,000 tusks of ivory, or shall we decide on 100 tusks every time he cuts a tooth? Perhaps 50 ostrich feathers for each hair as it sprouts would be a pleasing addition. I presume you are jesting. I assure you this matter is of the utter importance. There is need for haste, for as Penpy reminded me only this morning, the first child is due to quicken within a few days. Once the soul is firmly established in the fetus, we cannot expect it to be changed, though to the gods nothing is impossible. Karadan, at 44, you still have the pomposity I found so engaging when you taught me to make mud pies. Do you remember how your uncle tried to uphold your royal dignity by telling the attendants of less illustrious children that you were already conscious of your duty to Egypt? The mud represented the fields, the water, the river on which our welfare depends. And blending the two with such diligence, you were assisting the Nile to rise. I used to be angry with you for laughing at me. And now you trust me, because I still do. Poor Ramosis, he never enjoyed the advantage of being teased. Tua was always so conscious of her royalty that I often wondered how our father could endure her. Tua taught Ramosis to hate women. I shall never forgive her for that. Nor I. Tell me, does our brother share your view that the gods can be beguiled into sending him the son he desires? He intends to make the festivals more than usually elaborate this year, certainly at Heliopolis, Thebes, and Memphis, and here too, of course. How tiresomely dramatic, and how futile. Surely he does not think that Horus can be influenced by the spectacle of pharaohs officiating as men, no doubt with an accompaniment of sacred bulls, their horns gilded, garlanded with poppies and wilting lotus. There are times when it is difficult to be patient with him. Ramosis takes himself a little too seriously. Karadan permitted himself a smile. No doubt you have an alternative plan which will appeal to him. I shall tell him to pray in secret and without bombast for an heir who will cherish Egypt. I shall warn him that the gods will not send him a son in Horus only to gild his vanity. I love him too. I pray that the gods will pity his loneliness. That night, in sleep, I was with Sensen. She led me to a pool of clear water, and in it I saw the reflection of a scene which belonged to my side of the river. But I did not recall it until I was standing with Karadan beside his swimming pool. He was talking about some trivial matter concerning the royal granaries, when I interrupted him. Wait, I'm trying to recapture a dream. Yes, now I can see it again. There's a pavilion set amongst flowering papyrus reeds in a clearing near water. Above it is poised a great hawk, a hawk with feathers that shine brighter than gold. The hawk holds an open lotus in his beak. Karadan had little interest in dreams, but he said eagerly, if there's a pennant, a scarlet pennant flying from a spear driven into the ground, where the path enters the clearing? I hesitated. I think so, but I'm not sure. I was watching the hawk. A remarkable omen, most remarkable, Neb. We shall have to take very serious notice of this warning. You understand its significance? Tell me your reading, then we shall know if we think the same. The pavilion in the marshland must be the place where the virgins were brought to Ramoses. Scarlet pennants are always put at the entrance to the game tracks to warn bird snarers that no nets may be spread while Pharaoh is wildfowling. He sat down on a stone whose carved lions were piercingly white against the tamarisk hedge, and touched the tips of his fingers together, as I had often seen him do when pronouncing a verdict on some problem of administration. We have now established that you saw the hunting pavilion of Ramoses and that he was using it. Otherwise, there would have been no scarlet pennant. The hawk, the great hawk, brighter than gold, can be none other than Horus. He carries the open lotus symbol of the fully initiated priest. What could be more conclusive? We are greatly honored, my dear brother, for it appears that we shall soon be uncles in Horus. I wish I could treat the prospect as lightly as you do, he said severely. This omen increases the apprehension which tormented me during the night. No, I did not dream. I was sleepless, as I often am, if I forget to eat sparingly. The prawns were excellent, but I fear I overindulged. Caradon, I feel this is hardly the moment to discuss the inadequacies of your digestion. Forgive me, Ned. This is also overwhelming. As this subject has been in the forefront of your mind for several months, I'm surprised you find it novel. But the implications, Neb, I frankly admit that until yesterday I never seriously considered any alternative to Merempta. A winged pharaoh, the priest, king, the fulfillment of Seti's dream for Egypt. Seti once thought that I would fulfill his dream, I said nostalgically. You must not approach yourself, Neb. You had the wisdom to recognize that the truth which our father wished you to uphold are not taught in the temples of Amen. What use was it for Seti to build a temple to Zaatet at Abydos, or for Ramoses to enlarge it when the light flickers on our altars? There is power in Amen-Ra, but which power? To destroy or to create, to bless or to curse? His pedantry was infectious. I heard myself saying seriously, sentencely, the power of the Nile is not changed whether it revives the fields or floods the causeways. But we've built sluice gates, aqueducts, water channels to direct the force of the river. Ramoses has forgotten that priests must fill a similar beneficent office. He dedicates adjoining sanctuaries to Ptah and Sekhmet, to Horus and Bast. Are we a generation of madmen that we worship the opposing factions of heaven and hell in the same breath? Remembering Ramoses' hatred of User-Mentu, this struck me as somewhat shallow judgment. Is it to discriminate between good and evil that Ramoses wants a son of Horus? Caradon beat on the palm of one hand with his clenched fist. Ramoses wants a son who can prove himself stronger than the priesthood, stronger, not wiser. His overwhelming ambition used to be held in check because he was wary of the priesthood and they were wary of him. And what checks him now? There's an outward peace because temporal and magical powers are balanced against each other, like a dropstone and its counterpoise, so ordinary men like myself can administer the country. But consider my position if Pharaoh was both warrior and high priest. Life would become intolerable for everyone. If we can believe the records, life was much happier in Zaatet's time. Even most ordinary people went to the temple when they were troubled. Now they go in fear of the gods and look for comfort only from their own kind, or in a jar of beer. It was safe to put magical powers in the hands of men who believed that even when they had passed the 42 assessors, they must still be able to declare in truth, "Thee have conquered, for upon earth there is no sinful one, no sorrowful one, no suffering one, through any act of mine." Neb, until I loved Pempi, I never believed such an ideal was possible. Yet as a child I said those words before I slept, before sleep and at waking. As did I, Caradon, I reminded him. But Tua taught her son to pray for strength. Let me wake stronger than when I sleep. Let me not sleep until I'm stronger than I awakened. I used to shiver when I heard Ramoses say it, for his voice shook with longing for power. His prayer has been answered. Did the gods hear our prayers? I think so, Neb. For they gave Sensen to you, and Pempty saved me from being the only master of expediency. And Penpy, my wife, saved me from being only the master of expediency. Yet if they want Egypt to be again as it was in the time of the priest Pharaohs, they would have sent us children. Why have neither of us conceived a child by a loved woman, when Moses has so many that he hardly remembers their names? The gods may think that the time has again come to make the son of Horus more than a royal title. But who thinks so now? Which gods? The lords of the bright moon or the dark? I believe in your dream. May Horus protect me. I cannot disbelieve in it. In Merempta you have seen what happens to a prince brought up at court, for I promise you that he used to be a boy whom I would have been proud to call my son. You must forgive me for allowing affection to blind me to his failings. Affection is not blind, dear Caradin. It has only given you an insight which I lack to see his real quality. You're generous, Neb, for in your place I should have judged him more harshly. While talking, we had left the bench by the pool and were now pacing between lines of fruit trees in his orchard. He pointed to a single stalk of wheat, which was growing on a pile of rotten dung, half smothered by a tangle of dead cucumber vines. What harvest will grow from Pharaoh's seed? The corn which grows 7 cubits high, the corn of the fields of garnered experience, cannot flourish among tares. If this child is sent to us, no, I must rid myself of the cowardice of doubt. When this child is sent to us, we must protect him with all our strength. Their pattern is becoming more clear. Why did you establish a sanctuary, which might be a little gnome of the older, wiser Egypt, at the living water? The boy must live there until his soul is so strongly rooted in truth that he will be able to resist even the most subtle temptations of the priesthood. I felt it timely to show that he could not so easily make decisions which closely concerned me. Do you think Ramoses will permit us to decide his son's future, or himself be content to live as I did in seclusion? Somehow we must convince him, Neb. I know this to be vital to Egypt. You have dreamt of the Ark. It is you, and you only you, who will recognize this child. Unless you are sure that Ramoses will allow us to share, a major share, in the child's upbringing, you must convince him that none of the new children is in any way remarkable. If we cannot persuade the mother either to relinquish the child or else to come with us to the living water, then we must take him there by force. You seem to have planned a future for me which is less restful than a hornet's nest. First, I must bring upon myself the wrath of Horus, who is unlikely to be tolerant of a dishonest messenger. I must destroy Moses' faith in the gods' clemency. I'm then to kidnap a princeling in the hope that he will recognize my good intention when he comes to power. It is for the welfare of Egypt, said Caradin pleadingly. Personal consideration may not be allowed to influence your judgment. In any case, you exaggerate the dangers. Horus would not have revealed himself to you unless he had some good reason. If he preferred the usual channels of communication, why did he not appear to some important member of the priesthood? I'll stop this here. Fascinating. Next chapter to come.